So, boy, this is a great day. Rainy, but my grass really needs it, so that's a good thing. So just real quick, so Steve's out today, and that's obviously why I'm standing in, and I couldn't be more excited, although this is going to get heavy after an hour of talking. We'll actually have 3 hours probably worth of stuff, so it might, I have, John, if you can come up and hold it for me in a little while, if you see me start to fall over.
That's biblical, right?
Yeah. It's fellowship and brothers in need. So anyway, my name is Scott McMahon, and I am really best said as a humble servant, and I've been here at Branches for about 16 years. We don't have membership, so it's about the closest I can get to is number of years here, and it's really been an exciting journey for me as a person starting off from a very, very far away place in comparison to where I am now from a faith perspective. So I'm really excited to be here. My wife, some people know me as Katie's husband. I also go by that. So that's actually most of you. More times than not, I'm behind the scenes. And so to have the opportunity to go ahead and speak to you guys directly is quite an honor, and it's humbling. So I talked to Steve this morning. And we had a prayer, obviously, and I think he was just mostly checking to make sure that Katie and I were going to be on time. But with our past track record, I don't blame him. I wanted to call me too. So, but no, when we talked, in preparation for this, it's been a long journey for me to really understand what is the message I'm trying to bring here today. And I've spoken many, many times in many large symposiums, 2,000 people large at conferences and stuff. So speaking's not really so much of a challenge for me. It's not what I'm nervous about. And speaking in front of you, being friends, hopefully, most of you, and Joel too. But all friendly faces, smiling faces. I know you're encouraging me for the best. You want to hear the word. The hardest part is being sort of the vessel of the message. And I told Steve this morning that was, to me, one of the most humbling pieces of this journey, and how much more of an appreciation I have for what he does for us on a regular basis. I mean, I can't even say it's every Sunday and Wednesday. It's every day, every minute of the day he does that. And so what an honor it is for us to have a pastor like Steve who's able to make it look pretty flawless. I mean, now his jokes need some improvement. And I'm not going to be able to help with that. Maybe, Scotty, you can help out with some of that. But it is really quite an honor to be here, and hopefully we'll have a great message today. My message is more about a testimony of my walk. I'm not going to give you all the dirty details, just a couple of highlights of what I've been going through, some of the challenges of the past, some of the challenges currently today. And if it works for you, great. If it doesn't, well, it's really your fault, because you should be praying to God for a message to be heard. So I hold no responsibility in what happens today. So with all that said, a couple of housekeeping items. The first thing is I use a laptop. I'm a corporate guy, so laptops are the way I work. Now, granted, the words in here are captured from the Bible, so it's not like I made up these words. But it's a way in which I like to go ahead and present upon. But I did want to also cover a couple of housekeeping items. The first thing is we have Brenda in the back there who's helping with my slides, which is great. So I'll have a next slide from time to time. So my apologies for that. And then secondly, I want you to know, as I sort of alluded to, I'm by no means a trained minister or pastor. I wouldn't take my words as fact. Take them as my impression, my interpretation, my walk through my life, and as I've leaned on God from time to time, as I've struggled with God from time to time. Just make sure you understand that it's my perspective, and anything after that, we have a disclosure that you need to sign on the way out the door, so don't hold me accountable for anything again. And the one thing I do want to make sure that I said, in fact I shared this with my wife, is one of the challenges I have is when I talk about God, even to people, to non-believers and believers, sometimes it feels like boasting, because I feel like I've sort of matured. I'm further down the road than some people, certainly not all people, and a lot of people in this room I envy for how far you are down that path. But it does sound like boasting from time to time, where I feel like God's in my life, and so God must love me more than the next person, and that's a challenge. So anything that sounds like boasting, please make sure that you understand it's not boasting. It is simply just me witnessing, recognizing, understanding, and challenging myself to see God from time to time, and I hope you guys are too. But then also, there's some things I'm going to share that may sound like I'm reaching out for sympathy. As Steve shared last week on Sunday, I've been out of work for about a little over a year now, and that's been quite a journey, as you can well imagine. Trust me, I've enjoyed some pool time. I've had some good days and some bad days, but every day is a hard day because I'm always struggling to try and find where is it, not only where my job is, but where does God want me to be? And that is probably the hardest part of figuring out all this. So I'm being very, very picky, maybe even a little over picky, but nonetheless, I am going to be talking about some of my job journey here, and so I'm not looking for sympathy by any means. I'll take your prayers all day long, and if you have a job, I'll certainly talk to you about that. So with that said, it's back to school time. You guys, I'm sure, who are going back to school are super excited. August is such a great time, right? It's time where the kids don't get to sleep in late anymore, so they get to wake up early and attack the day and learn. I'm sure you're very, very excited about all that. And so I am very proud of those who are taking school for what it's worth, but more importantly, using that as an opportunity to go ahead and share God's word with your fellow classmates. So please continue to keep them in your prayers. And then a couple other things too real quick, and I'll use glasses because my eyes, it ain't so good. They used to be good, but then again, after I passed 20, things started going bad. So, all right, so it's not only school season, but it's also almost football season. It's 30-day countdown to football season. So I know we're going to get a big War Eagle from Mary Jo, right? Yeah. So that's always good. Sam J and I with Bama and Auburn is always a fun time. But there's also a couple of things that are important here in August you're probably not familiar with. It's Cataract Awareness Month. I probably need to go ahead and get my eyes checked. For all the guys in the room, I know this is something you look forward to. It's also Romance Awareness Month. So all you ladies are going to have to suffer with these romantic gestures from your husbands and significant others. So maybe I set the bar too high for me. All right, strike that. That's actually September. It's also a Catfish Month. So if you want to bring your wife a dozen catfish, that's always good. It's Goat Cheese Month. It's another exciting time. And then this is one of my favorites. This is really one of my favorites. It's Admit It, You're Happy Month. And I find that as argumentative but also positive at the same time. It's like, trust me, you're going to like this. And then the last one, this is actually one of the things when I read it I didn't realize, because I thought it was every month for my wife. It's What Will Be Your Legacy Month. So this is how she lives her life every day, and which is, it's humbling to be by you. And I'm going to break into tears. So anyway, it's a good time. It's a good time to hang around Katie because she's like the positive champion. All right, whew. Maybe I shouldn't have done that right before. Let's jump into prayer. So if you will join me. So Lord, like I said, I'm just so humbled to have the opportunity to speak in front of my church family, but not only church family, but also in front of you, God, to go ahead and broadcast and pronounce your name. To have the opportunity to go ahead and talk to you in a way that others can understand, not necessarily using my words to sink into their hearts, but your words, your message, your intention, your plan for them. So please go ahead and wash away any words and jokes and maybe misunderstandings and misinterpretations I may have, and please let God, you shine through those words into their hearts. For those who are struggling, those who are challenged, those who are lonely, those who are having health issues, relationship issues, struggling with loss in their lives of loved ones or missing just because they're away from them physically. Please go ahead and lift them up, Lord. And then also for anyone who has blessings that they maybe overlooked, that's something that sometimes a feeling of thankfulness is sometimes missed. And so we thank you for all those blessings that we may have overlooked ourselves, myself. And then lastly, as I mentioned, the students, those who are returning back to class, please let them have a great 2019 and 2020. Let them understand that it's really a great honor for them to go ahead and actually go to school. I joke about them waking up early, but yet nonetheless, it is an opportunity for them to go ahead and get excited about something, to learn something, to promote themselves, just like you ask us in our faith walk, God, that we're supposed to learn your message. Let them understand that not only are they learning the message of school, but they're also having an opportunity to be a champion and a minister of your word, God, to their classmates. So 2020 is going to be a great year for those students, and we greatly appreciate it. And in his name, of course, we pray.
Amen.
Okay, well, I got through that. All right, so we're done now, right? So let's bring on Cal and the team. So, no. I have a couple of things. If we could get to our first slide. So when Steve asked me, Brenda, you got that next slide coming? So when Steve asked me to speak, he said, hey, August 4th. I'm like, yeah, I can handle a Wednesday. How hard is that? And it was even a challenge even at that, but then I found out it was a Sunday, and I was like, okay, maybe that's not so much what I'm ready for. And so it was an exciting time for me to go through. So he asked me on May 21st if I would go ahead and speak. So that's obviously plenty of time. Sometimes time is a good thing because it gets you time to prepare, but it's also a bad thing because it gives you time to prepare. And so it was tough. But the reason why May 21st stands out is because it was a day that actually stood in my life. As many of you know, and as I mentioned, I'm out of work, looking for something to do, keep my daytime active, and my paycheck, my bankroll working. But nonetheless, it was on the 21st that it was a job I was pursuing that actually wasn't a good job. It was a dream job. It was a great job. It was a job that I, Scott McMahon, thought that was what I was destined for. I was working through a lot of interviews. I don't know how many hours I put in. I talked to like 15 people, probably 10 plus hours in direct interviews. I took, IQ tests and face-to-face exams and puzzles and all kinds of crazy things. And at the last second, they decided that they would go ahead and not choose me as a candidate. Now, granted, put you in the seat. I was heard from everybody within their organization and my recruiter that things were actually looking great. Signs could be no more positive than this. When I looked at LinkedIn, I was one application of over 1,200 applications just on LinkedIn, so I can only imagine how many people they had to filter through. So to get to that point of being virtually standing at the finish line, just waiting to cross, they called me up on the 21st and said, sorry, we decided we actually were going to go ahead and sell the company, and we needed another leader that actually had that experience that we could lean on to make sure that it was going to be a smooth transition, of which there's a lot of things I've done in my career and a lot of things I can kind of twist to show my experience. That was not one of them. So unfortunately, had to bow out gracefully out of that, and that was on the 21st. So I obviously called my wife, told her what was going on, but then the next call I made was to Steve, since I know Steve and the prayer buddies were sort of out there doing their job and doing a great job at it. And in the talk, in the discussion, Steve then, as I'm about to go into tears, talking about this fact that I lost my dream job, then says, hey, would you like to speak on August 4th? And I'm like, that just seems like the weirdest time to ask for a favor, quite honestly. Especially when the favor is like, come speak and share your testimony. It's like, well, God just kind of like, pulled the carpet out here, it feels like, at least to me. It doesn't really feel like you want that message being said on August 4th. And so I said, give me some time, let me think about it. So in doing so, I did think about it, and then on June 6th, I think this is from my Bible study, my daily devotional that I read on a daily basis. I felt like the message came, and I felt like I had no choice but to go ahead and pursue this opportunity to speak in front of you guys. So I'm gonna, if you will, indulge me for a second here. I'm gonna go ahead and read into this devotional so you guys can share sort of a glimpse of why the heck is Scott standing up here. So the title here is Faith Will Abound. Right out of the gate, that had my attention. I felt like that was something that regardless of what was going on in my life, regardless of how I perceived and how I calculated things, there was a whole other world going on that I wasn't giving credit. So what it is it starts off here at the top. You probably can't see it, so I'll read it to you, so please just assume that I'm sharing the right words here. So it starts at the very top in the italicized words, Colossians 2:6-7. So it says, as therefore you have received Jesus Christ the Lord, so walk in him, rooted and built upon him and established in faith, as you have been taught, abounding in it with thanksgiving. I struggled with those words because it struck me so hard, and it was, just a humbling time, because I was reaching, I was looking, I was searching. I'm like, God, why would you ask Steve? Is Steve's timing that bad? Now, granted, I've seen Steve have some bad timing, but this felt like this was beyond Steve. And then I got here and I read these words, and sort of rooted and built up in him stood out to me, and then established in faith. And I'm like, what kind of faith do I have if I took this one call, this one company who just decided to make a change, not me, not select me, is that how weak my faith was? And then Steve asking me to have the opportunity to speak in front of you guys and share a testimony, I'm like, wow, this is an opportunity for the next part to be abounding in it with Thanksgiving. And so I really felt like that was a calling in itself. So I'll finish up. So then the author writes the rest of this, or at least some of it. So how do you define faith? And so the Bible says, he quotes here Hebrews 11-1. He says, the Bible says, faith is confidence in what we hope for and assurance about what we do not see. And we probably all have heard that many times. I've heard it probably 100 times throughout my life, but all of a sudden now, on June 6th, it just struck me like a lightning rod right between the eyes. And so I realized then the rest of this statements here were pretty powerful and impactful. It says, it is believing, and you've heard Steve talk about believing in God, not just believing God exists, but believing, trusting in God, that he will do what he promises. And then acting on that belief. And I felt like the acting part was really calling on to me again to come here today, the act of showing the belief, despite what I actually felt and what I was seeing. So then the finishes up, and this is almost, again, probably explain my journey here. As we go through our lives, encountering joys and obstacles, facing enemies and making friends, so you can see the dichotomy there where it's facing enemies and making friends, two different sides of the story there. Handling extraordinary joys and losses, we live by faith in him who saves us. And for those of you who were part of Risen, who engaged in Risen, the play or walkthrough that we had for Easter, that really struck another chord in me with how deeply Christ suffered for our sins to go ahead and die for us in order for us to be saved. And so that was pretty compelling. And then to kind of read further, we keep going, putting one foot in front of the other, trusting that he really will guide us, that he will really teach us, he will really protect us, and that he will really provide for us, that he will take us home one day to heaven. And that is what it's meant to live by faith. And that's what I felt like I wasn't showing when I was even stumbling or struggling or hesitant on taking advantage of this opportunity. So just to finish it up. And when we do this, our faith is not only established, in other words, it's rooted. We now know we have faith, but it abounds. And that means sort of like the tree is growing, that there is a blossoming, if you will, of that rooted faith. And so being out of work for a year and a half-ish, it's been tough, but those are the real points of that have been my anchor, if you will. And on June 6th, I didn't realize it, but that's when it really resonated with me. So with that said, I could probably stop it there and call it a day, but Steve has a time quota. He needs to keep you guys entertained for a certain amount of time. So he insisted I not finish it early. So I'll try my best to kind of stumble through the rest of this. But what I thought was really cool about that, and I've heard during the time I've been out, somebody actually in my industry sort of had to have a testimony that they promoted on LinkedIn of all places. And he said, he had a lot of things to say, talking about his own personal testimony, but the biggest thing that he talked about was that we have an opportunity to have a relationship with the creator of the universe. And that if that doesn't make you humble, then you're not listening to those words. The creator of the universe, kind of a busy dude, right? He's got a lot going on, taking care of the entire universe. But yet, he wants to come down, not talk to all of us, he wants to talk to me, he wants to talk to you, he wants to talk to each individual one of us about the relationship that we have with him. And so that was what I was feeling through those words, was that sort of unacted faith was almost a dismissal of all of that. It was almost like, who cares, God, I'll take you when I need you. I was joking with Tommy, talking about my early faith walk, that I looked at life or my church walk as not religion, or not as my faith, but as religion instead. But really the thing is, I was using it like a convenience store. I was going in there and grabbing whatever I needed when I needed it, and then I was getting the heck out of Dodge. I didn't need it anymore. And so I was happy to find big churches that I could hide in. And then I started having a bit more of a deeper walk and having a bit more of a presence. And then we came here, the 16 years ago, and Steve married us. It's all his fault. So Katie's stuck with me now. But it is a moment where I realized only you, God, could go ahead and put me in this situation. 100%, I don't know if there's a number greater than, more than everything, but God did it where he put me in the spot where I completely did not want to be. Yet, I feel like I've thrived in the moment, and I continue to seek. I'm not done by any means, and I'm almost hardly halfway there, but I am struggling to get there. And so I appreciate all you guys being part of that faith journey with me. All right, so the next thing I want to share with you is a story, speaking of some history, 10 years ago. Some of you, actually many of you, may have heard this story, but it's something I just find as being very, very impactful in my life that I wanted to share with you guys today, because it somewhat impacts you. In fact, many of you, all of you, sort of take this blessing maybe for granted and just kind of stumble upon it on a daily basis. You walk, when you come here to church, you just trample all over this blessing that God gave us. And I don't say that in a derogatory way. We all do it. We don't really have a choice in doing this, but I wanted to kind of bring it to our attention because it might make you walk through the doors and through the facility here feel a little different. So about 10 years ago, I was actually on the committee to help with the selection of where we were going to move as far as the church is concerned. We were over on Old 92, or whatever they call that road now, at the boathouse. And it was quite, which coming from a Catholic background, having grand churches and coming to the boathouse, that again, talk about humbling, that was a moment where I said, I don't know if this is the church for me. But it certainly was the people for me. And then I realized then it was the people that was the church and not the building. And so through all that, I was working hard on figuring out, where should we be? Why should we move? Should we stay there? Should we fix that place up? Should we get another place? Do we want a main street? Do we want to be in the backwoods? What do we want? Well, we ended up selecting this place. That was about 10-ish years ago, probably might be even 11 years at this point. But the thing is, I was pretty significantly involved. Now, let's go to my corporate world. I was working at AutoTrader at the time. I was a strategy consultant for the organization, leading up their strategy division within AutoTrader. It's probably, at that point, a $700 million business, so it kept me busy on a daily basis, minute-by-minute basis. And we were in a meeting. I was actually helping the HR team with some of their annualized planning. Was going on. I had about 5 different, all the top leaders within the HR department, sitting around a table, a conference room, and all of a sudden the door, someone knocks on the door, which is weird. It's you usually don't get a knock at the door in a meeting. It's either you belong there or you don't. You either walk in or you don't. But all of a sudden we got a knock. So it was, I don't know, was it the Girl Scouts with cookies? I didn't know. So the leader says, "Come on in," and so he comes in, or at least pokes his head in, and it's the guy who leads facilities, and he says, hey, I have a very strange question. Has probably nothing to do with what you're talking about, but I wanted to make it available to you. AutoTrader was in the process of moving locations from all within Atlanta, but from a campus style to a very large complex down by Northside Hospital. And he said, listen, we're moving out, we're redesigning it, we're putting our own sort of look and feel on the place, and we're ripping out a bunch of carpet. And just making an offer, anybody want any carpet? We got to get rid of it in the next couple of days, and so let us know. And I'm like, this guy's really bugging us. I'm trying to plan the next 3 years for this department, and he's worrying about carpet. It was the weirdest sort of conundrum that I was in, and so I was instantly dismissing this, as if almost bothered by the interruption. And so I was just please, okay, no one wants carpet, go find where else you can go. And so then he's like, well, really, it's great for a garage or basement, or if you have a man cave. I don't think they had she sheds 10 years ago. I think that's a new thing. I'm not sure. They may have always had. I just was ignorant to it. But the thing is, I was, again, more bothered by the whole thing than I was actually lifted by the whole thing or thinking even about this. And then all of a sudden, he was naming off all these other things you can use carpet for, and I'm like, okay, great. I felt like it was like that shrimp moment with Bubba Gump, right? We got it. Okay, you can use it at a bunch of places. Wherever there's floor, you can put carpet on it. And then all of a sudden he goes, or if you have a church that maybe you're redecorating or remodeling. And I'm like, oh, well, I think we have one of those. I was sitting, talking at that time. We were actually, many of you guys in this room, people in this room, were actually significantly sweat equity into this place, tearing it down. This place was very different when we got it. And they were working very hard. We were getting weekly updates. So not only was I on the building committee, but I was also sitting here listening to all the hard work you guys were doing. And all of a sudden it's like, do you have a church that might need carpet? And I'm like, well, maybe we do. And then I thought to myself, okay, now how are we going to do this? I said, so when does the carpet need to be pulled out? He says, well, pulling it out tonight, it has to be gone by tomorrow. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, that's not like short notice. Okay, so maybe not. And then I thought to myself, oh, wait a minute, I have a really important meeting. Not only meeting I was doing, but a really important meeting the next day. And again, not trying to boast by any means, but I was leading and facilitating a discussion with all the senior staff at Auto Trader to decide should we or should we not acquire by Kelley Blue Book, which was about a $500 million acquisition, $500 million acquisition. And they were counting on me coming with some sense of intelligence of having a discussion around why should we not, what if we did, what if we didn't buy them, and what would the integration look like. And I said, okay, this is what, not to the world, but to myself, my inner voice, I said, ain't no way this is going to happen, Scott. There's no way. You have way too much going on in your life. There's no way you can do this. And so I decided, okay, I'm not going to do it. So I said, thanks for nothing, goodbye, and we went on with our meeting. But when I got back to my office, I realized then that I was probably being short-sighted. And again, being a strategist, I felt like, well, that's an insult to myself and my profession. So let me think about this a little bit more. I decided I was going to actually start making some calls to Steve, hoping Steve would go ahead and just say, nah, we got the carpet covered, we don't need it, it's probably not going to be the right style, the right size, we want brand new carpet. But then I forgot that Steve's the hoarder. And if I said there was like broken down bottles in the backyard, he probably would have come and picked them up. And so I didn't see that coming. But he said, well, let's just take a look at it. And I'm like, okay. So I instantly went to my prayer time and said, all right, God, I got this meeting going on. There's no way I can take the time to do it. I am almost so far behind, even without doing this carpet thing. What do you want from me? Like, why would you throw this at me? This is like absolutely not convenient. You're the creator of the universe again. Why would you do this to me now? Why can't you like wait till next week? And so what I heard, and I truly did hear this, and I've really never before heard God, but I heard it not in words. I heard it in a sense of like almost like an overwhelming sense, if you will. But they were words that I formed in my own head as a result of that said, I got this covered. No worry on your part. And I'm like, all of a sudden I said to myself, okay, great. If I don't have to worry, then I'm not responsible for anything that happens either with the carpet or with this meeting that's coming up. There's no way that I can be held accountable for this. And so it was really there was a peace that settled in on that because I virtually just got out of the driver's seat, sat in the back, hung out, thought about what was going on, and let God sort of drive on this whole thing. So incredibly enough, Julie and Steve and a bunch of other folks went ahead and put a lot of time into this, and ultimately were able to, I know Joe got a truck, and everybody sort of picked up where they could. We wound up having, I don't know, close to like 10 people that were there, maybe a little bit more than that were there that night. There's a funny story with Joe Everett and Clay, if you want to talk about that later. So it's still hilarious. Still makes me crack up. So inside joke, sorry guys. So the best thing was that the church just minute-manned, or minute-personed nowadays, where it just rallied around the problem, it rallied around the opportunity. It said, ain't no way we're going to let this thing go. We have to take care of this carpet. But they only said we can get like 2 to 4 pallets. And I'm thinking, okay, maybe we can do the stage. Maybe we can do a couple of classrooms downstairs. Well, we got there. Joe, sort of overshot. I guess he knew how big our God was. So he got the biggest stinking trailer he could find. I don't know, that thing felt like 1,000 feet, but it probably was like 25 feet. I don't know. It was something along those lines. And so anyway, so I got there later that night. They had already started things, and they had the truck almost halfway filled. I'm like, well, that's more than 4 pallets. And just like our God over-providing, it was so incredible to see the short-sightedness that I had, the willingness or the sort of the brush off, if you will, to God's plan that I had. But yet God said, you're going to listen to me. And through specific examples and gave me the specific piece I needed to get through this. And then we ended up getting a whole truckload. And actually beyond that, I think when Joe left with the truck, it was a safety hazard. I mean, to be honest. it was almost like the story of the boat with the fish, and it was about to sink and capsize because they were overabundant. It was exactly that same story. I'm telling you, you had to be there. It was because it was exactly that same story. And it was an amazing time. And when in fact, I think Joe had to stop off somewhere and get some air in the tires because the thing was that downloaded. And we actually had some other things too beyond carpet. But ultimately, we decided that was the right carpet to get. But one of the things I thought that was one of the most interesting, and Brent, if you can go to the next slide, I think. So one of the things I thought that was really cool, so this is an artist impression. This is what we had a guy that came to our church and sort of did all the sketch and the layouts and the design. His name was Matt. And this is what he drew up. This is before any of this existed. It looked like a funeral parlor in here beforehand. So this is what it looked like. And I'll tell you, if you look at the carpet here, you can see the carpet really is dynamically close to what's happening here. And so when I first showed these guys the carpet, we found out on a Thursday, they came Friday morning. When I first showed them the carpet, it was, I tell you, I really felt like I screwed things up. And I don't know if I can say screw up here, but I did. It was an incredible moment because Matt, the designer, looked at it and almost like had this look of deflated, like I was so excited, and then this is what you brought me? And I was almost like humble to myself, thinking I just wasted my time, I just risked my career, I just wasted Steve and Matt's time, Julie, and scattering about, getting everybody set up. And I thought to myself, well, I guess we tried. But then he almost broke down into tears. And he said, I'm like, well, what's going on? He goes, this is beyond what I could imagine. He goes, it was not only something that was a blessing to have, but it almost matched perfectly what I was looking for. It extracted my vision that really wasn't his vision, it was God's vision working through his hand. Just like the time that I had spent on trying to get this carpet onto the back of a very wobbly truck or a flatbed. It was incredible on how God put all this together, despite the humans that were involved and all the reasons why it shouldn't work. So it was a moment really that still stands out in my heart. And so the reason why I say you've trampled on it is it's the carpet. So we're going to walk on it. But I hope that you understand that this church is blessed, this body is blessed because God's watching over us on a regular basis. And whenever you feel like He's not, I ask you to come and stand on this carpet because you'll see there's a whole different world going out there that we're not looking at, we're not asking about, we're not seeking in many ways. I tell you, it's moments like this with this carpet, and there's 100 other stories that I have, I'm sure 1,000 other stories that you guys have that can show the importance of God in your life. Sometimes it's a whisper, sometimes it's just shout like, hey, you got a church that you're remodeling. Sometimes it's just a subtle nature of things, but I ask you to go ahead and always continue to think about how God's working in your life and be thankful for that. Amen. Thank you. All right, so I don't know, how much time do I have? Do I have to 2? Okay, so I'm going to try and breeze through this, and not in a sense of getting it done. By no means I'm not on a slide quota. I don't get paid by the slide nor paid at all. Literally, I don't get paid at all. So if anyone has a job out there, let me know. Remember, I wasn't looking for your sympathy. No, I do want to cover a few things, and I realize that again, back to Steve, like how he always has a message in sort of shiny object, squirrel, type moment, and I completely understand that. And I had that even just putting my things together. I knew that I probably overpacked it, but rather overpack than underpack. That's what my wife and I do all the time when we go on trips. 4 suitcases when you can have one, right? Okay, so fast forward to today. So again, my job journey has been interesting, a lot of prayer. Thank God I started a very significant deep dive into my faith walk 10, 15 years ago, because if it weren't for that, I wouldn't be able to joke about this. I wouldn't be able to stand up here and have a positive message. I hope this is positive. Have a positive message to share with you guys and have the opportunity to go ahead and show God working in my life. It just wouldn't have happened. So it just shows the incredible beauty of God and how sort of a long-term planner. I think I'm a strategic planner. That guy's got me beat big time. He is thinking very far out. He's putting all the pieces together. He's got us all in this room for a reason together, today and forever. He will always have the plan together. And so I've been doing a lot of soul searching through this walk. There's, as you can imagine, searching for a job. You've heard searching for a job is like a loss of a family member or something like that. And I would tell you, it's not. It is not. Many of you in this room are missing people in your life on a daily basis. And my heart goes out to you guys, because it stinks not having a job, and it stinks not having a paycheck, and we can't go on vacations like we used to, and so on. But you know what? It's nothing like the loss of a loved one, because you can't get that back. I can always get a job. But it's hurtful though. It's a year plus of rejection. You're not worthy. This is not something for you. You know, we don't need you here. Sometimes silence. Sometimes nothing. You know, feels like, you know, something familiar, right? Where you feel like you're not worthy in life. You pray to God and you get a lot of silence. I mean, there's such simple parallels here between job search and seeking where you belong, and a walk with God. And so I've been pretty humbled by all this. And so what I've chosen to do in this sort of downtime, if you will, comparison to where I was, is just quicken my faith walk pace. I'm like, well, if I can't, you know, do a job and I got extra time, I might as well go ahead and spend more time with God. So that's what I've really been doing. I've been spending a lot of time there, and I've been studying as best I can, reading the Bible as best I can, doing my devotional as best I can. Spending time in fellowship. I can't tell you how much the fellowship has helped me, not only in this moment, but also just in general, realizing the importance of it and how much I've neglected it. And so for those of you who have reached out to me, who have wanted to reach out to me, for those who I've reached out to, just know that those are all cherished moments in my life. And just helping BOC, like, you know, helping with the shelves I took downstairs. You know, Julie asked me to take some shelves out. I took some shelves out and I spackled behind me, and you think I actually painted like the Mona Lisa. I mean, it was seriously like the thankfulness that she had for such a simple act was in itself humbling. And I realized it's small things that we can do in our lives that really make the big deal. So if you're feeling like, what can I do? I can't do anything. I know we have a lot of call outs. John on a regular basis is up here trying to get volunteers for downstairs for the kids, and you know, John's not paying me for pushing this, but you know, I'm not volunteering for the kids, by the way, just so we have that cleared up. But you know, if you can't volunteer for the children, there's something I'm sure you can do. And so I would ask you to go ahead and sort of challenge you, if you will, to reach out and figure out what that is that you're being asked to do, what you're being called to do. And so back to the initial slide, it was about letting go. And so sometimes what happens is things that get in your way because you put them in your way. It's not God putting them in your way. And sometimes they are because they're challenges for you to learn from. But a lot of times they're challenges for you to have to let go. And so that's why I call today really letting go. I'm looking for a let it go faith, something where I can just, who cares about me, God? I care about you more than anything, and your need of me. Use me as your messenger, as your servant, as your vessel, and make me the person you need me to be. And then, on top of that, help me get and minister to others and be that missionary that you need me to be, to go ahead and call others to Christ. And so that's what I've been focused in on. Not every day is a happy day, certainly pity party days, but then I got my cheerleader at home to go ahead and tell me, shut up. Which is always fun. Katie's got one of those really harsh styles of making you realize that you are having a pity party. But it's been good. So, but I did come up with my own definition, if you will, of what I've been doing, how I've been going down this path of understanding, my own faith walk. And so I broke it down to like these 4 steps. And they're going to be an acronym because my wife loves acronyms, and I wanted to impress her today, so I made an acronym out of it. But it's not contrived, if you will. It's not like these not words so it can fit into an acronym. I actually did the words first, and it just happened to create an acronym. And then the acronym just happened to actually work. But this is something I've been, over the last year now, really diving in deep because I've had a lot of downtime. So the first thing is making a decision. So there's lots of decisions I've made in my life, but I'll tell you what, our faith walk is probably the most dangerous decisions you can make, or lack thereof. Sometimes people are so hesitant to make a decision, but guess what? That's a decision in itself. So be careful of not making decisions when you're called upon, but also, more importantly, make a decision for sure. And usually that decision is never a bad thing if you move it in the way of God's word that's held here in this book. That's why I don't use this book. It's way too small. I can't read that print at all. But that is my Bible that I used to read through the best I could. So if we could go to the next slide real quick, one of the chapter verses that I want to talk about was, and real quick again, each one of these we could probably dive into a whole afternoon. But Philippians 3:13, so it says, brothers and sisters, and that's Paul speaking to the Philippians, I do not consider myself yet to have taken hold of it. And that what the it means is the perfection of God. In other words, we're all striving to become more like Jesus. So that's the it. He hasn't become to the level of perfection that he feels like he can achieve. And so he's not there yet. But one thing I do, forgetting what is behind and straining toward what is ahead. Now you can look at that saying, forget the past, who cares? But that's not a good thing either, right? We got to learn from our mistakes. We got to learn from our triumphs. What it's really focused in on is don't dwell on the past. Don't make the past define you. There's always a future for you. There's always some other way that you can look ahead in things. So take your past, but then make sure that you're focused in on how you can use that past in the future. Using your success and failures in a way that are complementary to God. So, but again, it's a statement of letting go. It's don't, because I've done this thing wrong, because I got fired from a job a while back. That doesn't define me. That's not my value statement. My value statement is inside me, and it's upstairs in heaven, where God has defined who I am, the value that I bring. And that's the only value that you have. After that, the rest of it is just a paycheck and just work. It's something to keep you busy from time to time. And so make sure that you're ready to do God's work, because if you're putting those obstacles in the way, then you're ultimately creating a barrier for your own peace, and then you're getting in the way of a very important plan. So it's really important that you make sure that you don't dwell on the past. The next slide, if we could. So Proverbs 16:3. So this one's pretty simple, but it's complicated at the same time. It says, commit to the Lord whatever you do, and he will establish your plans. So that may sound like, well, okay, all I got to do is sort of high-five God, have the secret handshake, go to church on a regular basis, and he'll establish my plans. And that's not necessarily what that means. When you dig deeper into it and you take it, put it more into its context that it comes from, it's really talking about, it's one of those things, my wife always says, think about, you bring about. And it's one of those moments where if you are thinking about God, then your plans will likely, they better be, about God. So why wouldn't he establish those plans, right? So if you're thinking the right way, then your plans will likely be the right way. But if you're planning first, then thinking second, found my dream job, this is the best thing ever. Didn't he deliver on some golden chariot? It was a company called me up. We walked through many hours worth of investigation. But the thing is, it was my plan. It wasn't his plan. And so that's one that really stuck out to me is I got to make sure that I understand his plan is the plan. Okay, number 2. Next slide, please. So overcoming obstacles. So this is a big one. I can't lift that weight. That's not me lifting that, by the way. Maybe Clay. But it is it's a big thing. What it's talking about, or meant to go ahead and convey, is that overcoming obstacles is an important part in anything, right? In an obstacle course, in driving on 285, and sometimes just getting through life on a regular basis. It's important to get through the obstacles, but the thing is, how do you overcome those obstacles? It's defensive driving if you're on 285, right? But in your faith walk, it's empowering yourself in the Word. It's making sure you understand what the Word is, and not sort of making your own translations out of things. It's making sure that you understand how ultimately to behave around the Word. And so, one thing, if we go to the next slide, one thing that I thought was really a pretty cool way to convey this is in Psalm 119, 10 through 12. It says here, I seek you with all my heart. Do not let me stray from your commands. I have hidden your word in my heart, which is kind of weird, right? Why would you hide the word? But I've hidden it away in my heart, that I might not sin against you. Praise be to you, Lord. Teach me your decrees. So the in my heart piece really stuck out to me. It's like, why would I hide his word? Aren't I asked to go ahead and sort of proclaim his word? And what that's saying, it's almost like a safe. Our heart is a safe, right? A heart can be broken, and our heart can be filled in both ways. And so by locking it away, hiding it away in my heart, means that the words of God, his decree, is deeply rooted inside me. It's not just this flipping on my sleeve that I choose to use the words, or I wear a t-shirt that has a cool proverb on there. It's something that I truly believe in, that it's part of me, and that it's almost impossible to rip out of me without destroying me. And if you want to take away my faith, you might as well destroy me. So that's one thing I really felt like it was my challenge to myself to better understand and lock away his decrees in my life. The next one, please. So victory is yours. And I always love the word victory. It always sounds pretty cool. Everyone loves being victorious. Typically, your hands are up in the air as the victor. So it's always a great thing to be victorious. But quite honestly, victory is yours. But again, it's not that dream job. It's not maybe the way you planned it. It's not, maybe the grade that you wanted in school. It's not, the relationship that you were looking to go ahead and get. Victory is yours, meaning the yours is capitalized here for a particular reason. It's because it's his. And so that's his victory, and we're only just getting to witness it and sometimes getting to play in the game. But it's really up to him to make sure that there's victory there. So if we go a couple of verses here, next slide, please. So Corinthians, and you may have seen this one before, 15, 57 through 58. So it says here, but thanks be to God, which I always laugh, because my wife will get a kick out of this. When we were going Catholic school or Catholic church, we had a pastor or a priest from Boston. So you always used to say, thanks be to God. And I'm like, why is he so mad about it? It always sounds like and I'm from New York, so I get the whole attitude thing. But the thanks be to God, it just felt like he was aggravated with God. But anyway, so I say it in a very pleasant way, I hope. Thanks be to God. He gives us the victory through our Lord Jesus Christ. Therefore, my dear brothers and sisters, stand firm. Let nothing move you. Always give yourselves fully to the work of the Lord, because you know that your labor in the Lord is not in vain. And so you can look at that and say, again, anything I do, as long as it's for the Lord, that's great, which is very true. So this is Paul writing to fellow believers. It's really more about the resurrection of the body. It's not so much what you do now for here. It's what you do now for there. And so that's what I think is really interesting about this. It's about what the power of resurrection is. And again, back to, Christ died for our sins and how important that is in our lives. So it's really something that struck me as again, get out of yourself, Scott. Why are you so worried about this job thing? Certainly I'm worried about it, and certainly I'm striving hard to find something, but I'm not worrisome. I'm not, questioning my relationship with God. In fact, I hope I'm running to God for those answers more sternly.
Is that first or second?
I think it's second.
It's first.
Is it? Thank you. No audience participation, by the way. Yeah. Security. We'll handle this like a Trump rally. I won't tell you where I stand on all that. All right, so next slide real quick. Matthew, this is first Matthew. 7-8. So this is one that actually is on a lot of t-shirts, if you will. So there's 7-7. So ask, seek, knock. So it says here, ask and it will be given to you. Seek and you will find. Knock and the door will be open to you. And then it finishes up in 8. For everyone who asks receives, the one who seeks finds, and the one who knocks, the door will be opened. So that seems like a credit card to Happy Place, right? I mean, it's just as long as you believe in God and you ask, God, then you got whatever you need. If you're seeking, you got whatever you're seeking. And if you're knocking, all those doors will be open. If that's the case, my job would already be there. And so with that, again, it's taken out of context in the sense where it's not necessarily the things I want, but it's the things that God needs. And so what God needs from us is follow his commands, but he also needs a relationship with us. And that was one of the hardest things for my faith walk, is to figure out, why would God want a relationship with me? What's so cool about me that he would need me, he would want me? But he actually does yearn for me. But he doesn't just yearn for me, he yearns for each one of you individually. not collectively, but individually. He certainly wants us collectively so we grow and stronger, but it's individually, and that's really an important part. It's a personalized relationship with God. So that's what this is talking about, really. It's really about seeking the Word of God, seeking the opportunity to have a relationship with Him, asking about these commands and what am I expected to do, questioning some things. Certainly, we're not supposed to question to puts us in a sort of a lock grip, but we are to question to strengthen our understanding of things. And so that's what it's asking for. And then the knocking, the door will be open. It's a relationship with God. God doesn't hold back. He's not trying to trick you in any way to figure out, well, how can we get away with, Scott today and make his life miserable? It's all about how can I get Scott closer to me today? And so that's really what this passage is about. So for those who have a T-shirt and thought this was like your carte blanche, sorry to break your bubble here. All right, then the last one, real quick. And am I okay on time? Mark, you want to give me a thumbs up on time? Okay. Okay, another hour. Yeah, we're almost finished. I'm on 4 at least. All right, so 4, previous to that. Yep. Every day with God. So this is an important part, and there's some, if you want to go to the next one. So it's pretty simple, right? So give us this day our daily bread, right? That's one we've heard of many, many times before. On Matthew 6:34, therefore do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will worry about itself. Each day has enough trouble of its own. Love this passage. It's super snarky. It's like, who cares? It's like, oy vey. I mean, it's a really, truly something that is like, it makes you feel like stupid for even thinking about worrying about what's coming tomorrow. I got enough going on today. And then the last one here on the bottom side is Joshua 1:8. And this is God himself speaking to Joshua. And it says, keep this book of the law always on your lips. Meditate on it day and night, so that you may be careful to do everything written in it. Then you will be prosperous and successful. Again, not just doing whatever you want and God will praise you for it. It is truly working hard through it to make sure that you are doing this on a regular basis, seeking His word, His guidance, and His plan. So there's a book that was written a long time ago, and it says the difference between good and great is greatness is being good every day. And so that's the important part. So you can be good with God from time to time, and that's cool, and that's great, and that's walk faith. That's probably where I'm at right now. But greatness with God is something that you perform every day. And so that's a really hard thing to do, but I'm striving to get there. All right, so if we go to the next one, there's our acronym. It's MOVE. You guys probably have been, some of you who have probably been looking at the underlined words, already figured it out, but MOVE. So my faith makes me move. When I look at that pathway there on the slide there, that movement is not a straight line. They say the fastest way from point A to point B is a straight line, but good luck in life getting a straight line. I mean, it doesn't really happen very often, if at all. And so movement is sometimes left, right, up, down, back, forward. It's all kinds of places, and it's a rough trail. It's not a smooth path that you get to go down. So your abounding faith is a faith of action, and is also a faith of movement. You have to be moving in your faith walk, moving in your ministry, ministering to other people, moving in learning how things are going, moving in giving yourselves, giving your heart up to God. It's all about movement. For those of you who are happy to stay stationary, it's fine, but I really would encourage you to go ahead and find ways you can move. Everyone can move in some way, in some fashion, whether it's physically or mentally. There's ways you can do this, and so I would encourage you to do this. So it's make a decision, overcoming those obstacles, knowing that victory is yours, victory is His, and then every day spending with God. You can't go wrong with that kind of example in your life of working every day. Now, I can't tell you that I do this like beaming, glowing. People come like, "What's the bright light coming from Scott's house?" It's not like that. I struggle with this just as much as you probably all do, probably more than most. And so I just encourage you to try and use these things as ways in which to go ahead and focus in on. Okay, Cale, I think it's getting time for you. So thank you. Hopefully you guys heard a message there. I don't know what it was. No, it's been really hard, but I do appreciate the time spent with you guys. Like I said, I'm kind of a work in progress. For those of you who knew me back when I was much younger, there's a lot of progress. But for those of you who see me now, you probably, that guy needs a lot of work. And so I agree. I mean, I'm with you. I do need a lot of work, and I'm really working hard to get there. But it is about having that personal relationship with God and having that sense of understanding the humility that he wants a faith with me as much as, or if not more, than I want with him. And I just seek his guidance in my life. I seek his guidance in your life. I'm blessed to have you all in my life as my church family. You're by choice my family, and that's pretty excellent. I couldn't imagine getting stuck with a better group of people who have not only helped me along the way, but they sort of shoved me down that path in many ways. And so I'm super excited. Now, I would encourage you guys, please think tonight, today, maybe tomorrow, think about how you can let go of something. What are you holding on to with a death grip that you think is so vitally important to you because you think it's important? I'm not saying let go of it. I'm just saying I'm encouraging you to go ahead and find ways of which you can think about letting go, seeking God to see if that's the way in which it should go. And if it is, and you need help, I'm happy to sit with you. I'm happy to pray with you. I'm happy to give you advice where I can. I'm sure everyone here is the same exact statements. Find help if you need help, whether that's through addiction, through bad habits, through loss of loved ones, whether it's through loss of a job. These are things that we struggle with, but if you get out of your own way, sometimes that healing process may not be faster, but it's littered with peace. It's peace all over the place when you can go ahead and make sure that you're getting out of your own way. So with that said, please stand and we'll praise him in worship.